Ugh. So, what a huge hole in this hoof. And about right here, you're going to see there is a massive boulder of a rock that was kind of wedged up inside there and pushing on the corium. Fortunately, this cow wasn't limping too bad because you can see the outside edges of that crater and that hole were higher than that rock was. And so that rock was up inside, but the weight bearing area of that hoof was stable and strong. So fortunately, this cow wasn't in a lot of pain. However, we really can't leave a hoof like that, and so we started grinding it down, and it's going to be important as we go through this process, all that gunk coming out of there, to kind of get rid of that crater, but still kind of maintain some structure and some support to hold that animal's weight. Obviously, we're going to need to put a block on this. You really can't see yet, but you will be able to. That boulder had scratched into and kind of irritated that inner tissue, and so there is the potential for her to be quite sensitive and would really like to elevate that claw. So after we've got the block on, I'm going to get the hoof knife and we're going to carve around that wall and try to do the best we can to expose that area so that we can get some powder applied to it. If you look up above where my fingers are right there, there is a little bit of inflammation. Luckily, it is only in the infected toe, so it's not in that adjoining tissue to that other claw. So the block will not or should not cause too much of a problem. However, when we do the recheck, you're going to notice that she's still a little bit uncomfortable. And a lot of that reason is because blocks really aren't comfortable for cows. They're designed to put weight on both claws. And so when we force them to walk on one toe, all that connective joints and tissues up in the ankle are doing what they're not meant to do. So blocks really for me are a least case scenario, worst case scenario. I use them when I have to, but in an ideal world, I would actually rather see that cow limp just a little bit without a block, without risking the damage to that joint. So here we're kind of getting down to the bottom, and you can see that dark spot right in the middle of that cavern. That is where that had been kind of rubbing on and irritating that corium, which is the inner part of that hoof. So it's important to kind of slope that cave, and so dirt and debris and more rocks can't get packed up inside there, which it opened up really nice. We'll get a lot of oxygen in there. The weird thing was it kind of worked back up in towards the heel bulb, which is some pretty it's a different type of hoof. It's a lot more rubbery. It's softer. And I don't like to take a lot of that away. I usually like to just use that powder to kind of work its way up into those cracks, seal it off, and then typically new horn will push out kind of that older horn that's sloughed off, and in 2 to 3 months it'll just trim up like normal. And so the goal here is to minimize the damage, seal off that wound, and then get her back on track. So I get asked quite a bit, why don't you use salicylic acid on these wounds? Everybody else does. Personally, I don't feel like that is a good application on inner tissue. So salicylic acid is kind of an irritant. That's what humans use when they have plantar warts or seed warts or any type of wart on their skin, that we put that salicylic acid on there so it irritates that area and signals our immune system that we don't want that wart there. We do the same thing on cattle. If they get a digital dermatitis or a hairy heel wart, when we put that salicylic acid on, it signals the brain that, hey, this isn't supposed to be here, so we need to do something about it, which helps that animal heal that wart. When it comes to that raw corium and that tissue-building corium, when we put something on there that's going to irritate it, all that's going to do is create scarring, create damage, which is just additional problems that cow has to take care of. So as we watch her walk out of the chute, you're going to notice that there's not a lot of pain. There's not a significant amount of discomfort for this animal. You know, she's got the block on now, but she's not used to walking on that block, so she walks relatively good. Surprisingly, in my opinion, I feel like when we do the recheck, which is 2 days after this, she actually wasn't walking as good, and I will explain that a little bit when we're doing the recheck. All right, so now we're going to show you what she looked like 2 days later. Still just a little bit nervous on that hoof. My honest opinion is that's not so much because of her hoof as it is having a block on that hoof. And so, you know, I get asked all the time, why don't you put a block on there? They all need blocks, and blocks are good, but they're not comfortable for those cows. Those cows are designed to walk on 2 hooves, and so we always have to make that decision. Come on, sweetheart, let's go. We always have to make that decision as to whether it's worth the discomfort of the block to alleviate the discomfort of the sore, or if we can get that cow better quick enough and get that block off as soon as we can. So we're gonna go put her in the chute, check her out, and see how she's doing. Okay, so you can see, it's okay, girl. She's been walking on that toe just because that's what she's used to doing to avoid any pressure right here. And that's probably one of the reasons she was not limping really bad at first. But we put that powder on there. I want to get the wrap off. I know, girl, it's okay. Boy, and these are my favorite moments. I know, feels better. Favorite moments is taking that powder off and just seeing how much that can do to a wound like that. Boy, and you remember how raw and sensitive all that was up inside there. So there's a little bit more. I know, we're careful. Boy, so a little bit of moisture right there. I think that is minimal. So I'm gonna switch sides with the camera so I can see a little better what I'm doing. And I think she's well on her way to recovery. I'll try to stay out of the sunshine. So right in there's, remember that wound was all the way from here up. So now that we've got that tiny little area right here, I think just one more treatment with that powder, and that will be sealed off completely, which will then allow her immune system to come down and heal. So one other thing I want to point out, I'm going to have the camera kind of come up from up higher, is this inflammation that happens when they get a wound like that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. What that is the cow's immune system coming down to heal this. So the powder's not really doing all the work. Half of that work is done by that animal. So pretty awesome how she's not limping too bad. I think there's still enough going on here. We don't really want to remove that block yet. And so we're going to get her wrapped up and kick her back out. All right, sweetheart, you're gonna be out of here quick. The other things I like about this dairy farm in particular is the amount of care they're able to provide. So they have set up their system for not taking care of a lot of cows, so they do a good job of keeping the cows from getting this way. But whenever a cow does have any type of problem, they've got the facility where these can go into a very small area that has a lot of straw, very close access to food and water. And so they are able to treat these cows a lot more carefully, which enhances and gives that animal a lot more extra to take care of herself. So let's watch her walk out of the chute one more time and call it good. Boy, I think she's doing great. You go, sweetheart.